It's semifinals time, folks. The Montreal Canadiens against the Vegas Golden Knights. And we've got the playoff preview coming up. All right, this is going to be a good series. Vegas Golden Knights against the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to break down category by category these two teams. I think that both teams have a shot. Obviously, there's make no mistake about it. Everybody's giving the Vegas Golden Knights a pretty heavy advantage. That being said, I think as we break down category by category, don't write Montreal off. Fact is, I think if Montreal catches some lucky breaks, and if they play to their best and don't get beaten up too badly, don't get injured too badly, I think Montreal actually has more of a shot than what people are giving them credit for in this series. So what we're going to do here is we're going to break this down category by category. First category being offensive firepower. Let's get into it. All right, so when it comes to offensive strength, there's just no denying the fact that Vegas has a significant advantage over Montreal. That starts with shots. The fact is that over the regular season, if you look at the plus-minus shot differential, sometimes a category or a statistic that I think is undercited, but Vegas had a significant advantage in this category. Over the regular season, they were plus 302 in terms of shot differential. Now, Montreal also was in the positive on the positive side in that category. They were plus 68, but the difference there is significant. Vegas outshot their opponents by 5.39 shots per game. That's a pretty massive difference. When you're getting 5+ extra shots per game over your opponent, that's 5 opportunities to put the puck in the net that your opponent's not getting. It's the kind of advantage that makes the difference in the playoffs. Look at the first couple series that Vegas had. They outshot Minnesota by about 50 shots, and they outshot Colorado also by about 30 shots. That had a clear impact in their ability to put the puck in the net, and I think it was the difference in those two series. Montreal, meanwhile, they were outshot by Toronto. They were outscored by Toronto in their first series. The fact is, Montreal did turn around and outshoot and outscore, of course, Winnipeg in their 4-game sweep. Montreal's going to have to do better in terms of producing shots and producing goals if they're going to have any opportunity to knock off the Vegas Golden Knights. The other important factor in terms of offensive production that I think we have to look at is that Vegas, in their first two playoff series, they're firing on all thrusters. Their go-to guys in the regular season, talking about guys like Marchessault, Carlson, Stone, they've been producing. They produced in the regular season, and they're producing now in the playoffs. That's not always the case. If you look across the slate at all the teams so far in the playoffs, the regular season guys are not necessarily the producers in the playoffs. The teams that do well and who can go on deep runs into the playoffs, normally that's happening on teams that are getting production from their normal go-to people. You can have a short-term star in the playoffs. Montreal's had a couple of guys rise to the top that don't always shine in Montreal and aren't always their top producers, and that can sustain you for a short period of time in the playoffs, but it's not going to necessarily take you for a deep run. Statistically, that's very rare, certainly historically, to see a deep run from a team that continues to get, again, maybe some short-term spurts from guys that have not been their long-term producers. Normally, you have to be firing on all thrusters. You have to have production from your go-to people if you're going to have success deep into the playoffs. So how are we going to score this category? I'm going to give this 9-4 in favor of the Vegas Golden Knights. There's just no doubt Montreal is not. They're outclassed in this category. They're going to have to find a way to make things happen that they have not been able to do previously, even in this run, the successful run thus far in the playoffs. Montreal's been doing some very good things, but they need to do more of them, and they have to accomplish some things that so far have eluded them. That's what they're going to have to do in this category in order to be successful against Vegas. The second category is defensive reliability. It is pretty clear that the strong advantage is to Vegas. I think that it does continue to endorse so far. wait for it. But so far, I think it continues to endorse why people are saying that Vegas is the very strong favorite in this season. When it comes to defensive reliability, we're going to score this one 9-5 in favor of the Golden Knights over the Canadiens. And I think so far the story that we're telling here is agreeing with that strong advantage that some people are saying that Vegas has over Montreal. But now we come to our third category, which is depth across the team. Okay, on this next category of depth across the team, again, I mean, you've got, with Vegas, you've got more scoring production, and they've got maybe greater strength in their defensive ranks than Montreal, and therefore I think, again, we're going to have to give a little bit of an edge to Vegas, but Montreal is also a team that does have some reasonable depth across their team. It's not like they're relying entirely on one or two players for their scoring effectiveness. Yes, in the playoffs, being Tyler Toffoli, who's been very strong, been a leader at the front of the team, but Montreal is a team that does have some ability to go to different players at different times. And I think in that sense, you have to acknowledge that Montreal, in terms of depth, they're not as far behind Vegas as maybe they are in some of the other categories. So in this one, we're going to give it a 7-6, still to Vegas's favor. One thing to mention there, and this is an interesting point, is Montreal has an over-reliance on the blue line and over-reliance on their top four defensemen. If you look at the time on ice for Montreal's top four defensemen versus their third-string defensemen and compare that to the same proportion with Vegas, Vegas has a more even balance of minutes across three defensive lines. Whereas Montreal, their top four defensemen are doing much heavier time, and then it's almost just a rotation back and forth between their first line, their second line of defenders, and then their third line gets out for 7, 8, 9 minutes a game, but it's way behind, maybe 12 minutes a game, but not nearly the number of minutes as what you're seeing in the first and second lines of defenders. That could be a risk for Montreal going further and further into the playoffs in terms of their ability to sustain their success, given the fact that you've got effectively four guys who are doing just about all of the defensive action on the Montreal side. So on depth, I'm going to give that category. I think we said 7-6 in favor of Vegas, and the defensive side of things is one of the reasons depth is a little bit more at risk in terms of what the Canadiens are bringing. All right, before we get to the fourth category, I'm just going to ask if you're getting value out of this video and you're enjoying this preview, then just give us a big thumbs up down below. We would appreciate it. Really helps support the channel. You know the routine, and we would appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so the fourth category is the current condition of the team. So let's start off by acknowledging that we don't know if Jake Evans is going to be back yet. At some point in this series, yes, he's not the top scoring, not one of the top scorers in Montreal, but I think he's a presence that everyone acknowledges is missed in Montreal, and as a hard worker, as somebody who just the what he brings in terms of some of the intangibles, some of the soft skills to the team. I think that, if Montreal can get Jake Evans back, it's going to be a big advantage there. But a little bit more advantage to Vegas in this category in terms of not being as banged up as you might expect at this time in the playoffs. Okay, the other thing when it comes to current condition of the team, I'm also thinking there about the break between the previous series and the current series. Montreal swept their previous series. Now, that would seem to be a good thing, but it's not always a good thing. And actually, if you look at the last 25 years of results in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and you look at the teams that have won series 4-0, we did an article actually on our website. There's a link in the description below. But the rate of success, if you win a playoff series in the Stanley Cup playoffs 4-0, the likelihood of you winning your next series, you would expect that team that's done that, I mean, they're doing wonderfully, right? You would expect that they're going to be very likely to go on to that next series and be successful again, but they're not. In fact, less than half the time, a team that sweeps a series is less than 50% likely to win their next series, let alone sweep or win 4-1. But they normally lose their following series, or at least more than half the time they lose their following series. And we've seen that happen with Colorado this year. We saw that happen with Montreal's previous series. Who did they beat? They beat Winnipeg. What did Winnipeg do in their first series? They won 4-0 against Edmonton. So it really does seem to be, in our article on our website, we call it a curse. Well, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Maybe that's a little bit of a dramatization. But the fact is, it's probably not a good thing, because you have too long a pause and you get out of sync. Montreal, their current condition is that they have been maybe getting a little bit rusty for too long a pause. Meanwhile, they're coming up against a team that's just fresh off of a successful outcome against Colorado. And yes, it's a series that's tiring and all the rest. And the fatigue factor is something that's always the counterpoint that people say. But the fact is that I think the numbers indicate that actually the fatigue factor is less than the pause factor in terms of getting a little rust in the joints, getting out of sync, out of your regular routine, and that's a risk. So I think that leans against Montreal, as well as the fact missing Jake Evans, and I think they're a little bit more banged up. So we're going to give the advantage 9-7 to Vegas in terms of current condition of the two teams. Okay, the last category we have is goaltending. Now, this is a fascinating one, this series. The matchup between Vegas and Montreal in net is a really interesting one. Why? Because you got a couple of old guys, no offense intended, but a couple of guys who are getting on in years in terms of their NHL careers. Fleury and Price are two long-time, highly respected goaltenders, and both goaltenders who are maybe have been victims of people thinking that they're potentially past their prime, potentially not as strong as they used to be. And some people would suggest that regular season stats have kind of bear that out. That being said, what's happened? Playoff hockey, it always is a game changer. And playoffs have arrived. Carey Price is on top of his game. He's looking like he did years ago. He's got 93.5% save percentage thus far in the playoffs. He's looking like the Price of old. Can that be sustained? We'll see. Marc-Andre Fleury, likewise, outstanding play, 92.3% save percentage thus far in the playoffs. What's interesting is that neither of these teams have number two goaltenders that they're probably going to want to go to. If either get to the point of needing to call on their number two for regular action this series, it probably means that the series is tilting against whichever team that it is. Therefore, probably each team is going to sink or swim with their bread and butter goaltender. It's either going to be, advantage Price or advantage Fleury. Who does have the advantage there? I think looking at the success overall, you still have to acknowledge that Vegas, with the results through the regular season, even though Price has been outstanding thus far in the playoffs, it's not just all about the playoffs. And Montreal's gotten themselves in a position where maybe they're needing to rely a little bit too heavily on Price to save them at the end of the rink. They need to be doing more to protect Price and more to produce in front of Price. And therefore, I would say that you do have to give the advantage here to Vegas. I'm going to give it 8.5 to 8. Not entirely a lopsided advantage, because let's admit it, Price is doing a great job. But at the same time, just for the fact that Fleury has been the more consistent producer all the way through the season, then slight edge to Vegas in the goaltending category. All right, so where does that leave us overall? We're scoring Vegas with 42.5 points, Montreal with 30 points. That leaves us with a percentage likelihood Vegas winning at a 58.6% chance of Vegas winning, a 41.4% chance of Montreal winning. So clearly strong advantage. You have to give the nod to Vegas in terms of the overall chance of winning this series. That being said, I do think that if you look at across all the categories, particularly in goaltending, we know that a hot goaltender can make a massive difference in an individual game, and it only takes 4 games to take a series. Carey Price is the match right now, the match of Marc-Andre Fleury for the most part, or at least during the playoffs so far, he has been the match of Marc-Andre Fleury. Can he carry that through 4 games? Tough to say. there's no doubt that in terms of the offensive firepower, the defensive strength, Vegas is the stronger team. I would expect Vegas is going to win. That being said, the idea of writing Montreal off, which I think some people have done in a series where you've got such a strong goaltender who has perennially been very strong and who is right now has reemerged and has been quite strong. Does that mean that he's likely to maintain that through the series? I don't know. That's questionable. But certainly I think you have to acknowledge that Montreal has an opportunity here. And it's risky to ride in the coattails just of your goaltender. And they're going to have to get some more production from some more members of their team up front. That being said, don't write Montreal off quite yet. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up down below. And we've also put a link to our website in the description of the video down below. We are a new website and we're a new YouTube channel. If you click over to our website and click around, check out some of the articles that we've been producing. We've got a whole bunch of articles on there, a lot of different content. That will help us with both the Google algorithm and the YouTube algorithm. It'd be really beneficial to help us grow and to sustain our channel and our website. So I appreciate if you can do that. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one.